business or are you running a business? Valuation is the ultimate KPI.
Hey there, welcome to another episode of the Valuations Podcast, brought to you by Trulytics, the premier transition management and business optimization platform for the wealth management and insurance industries. My name is Mike Langford, and I'm the host of the Valuations Podcast. And in today's episode, I want to explore why being easy to work with and easy to work for is so crucial to the long-term vitality and viability of your business. You know, one undeniable trend that is continuing to reshape the business world is the reduction of friction in everything that we do in business. And think about it. Even going back to the Industrial Revolution days, we always look to improve the assembly line. Remove friction in the production of product will allow us to deliver more product and deliver that product more cost effectively, and therefore improve the business, right? We'll be able to reach more customers and serve more people. And that trend just continues on and on and on, even into here, the 21st century in an information economy, right? Consumers, businesses, and employees are always looking for the easy button in all areas of life, right? And wealth management in the insurance industry is not immune to this trend. Just look around you, right? Think of all the things that have gotten easier over time. Think about how easy it is to buy stuff today compared to 20 years ago, right? On Amazon, it's like one-click shopping, right? You can just click and buy stuff and have it delivered. And heck, I bought a new pair of AirPods today on Amazon Prime Now. They were delivered today. I didn't have to leave to get them. They were just delivered to my doorstep. Think about how easy it is to book air travel or a hotel room compared to 20, 30 years ago. It's so easy. Right from your phone, you can book a trip and book your stay. It's wonderful. Now think about from the financial world perspective. How easy is it to deposit a check to your bank account? You can literally, if somebody hands you a paper check, you can take a photo of it on your phone and it's deposited to your account. You don't have to go to a teller or a bank machine anymore. You can open your banking app and move money around. You can pay bills. On your investments app with your broker-dealer, you can trade stocks, you can withdraw money, you can do all sorts of things. You could have money deposited into your account for investing. So life continues to get easier and easier and easier. And another way of thinking of that is the friction continues to be removed from the process. Now, there's two areas that I want to focus on today, and that is removing friction from your clients' processes, your client relationship and the interactions you have with those clients, and removing friction from your employees' lives, right? So particularly the advisors and the agents, right? They are there to build and maintain the business. And there are other employees in your business, right? Depending on the scale of your business, you may have executive assistants that are there for service. You may have people who are there for clerical work. You may have people that are there for tech side to support your business. So it really depends on the scale of your business. But everybody in your business that is working for you, you need to remove friction from their lives as well, because that allows them to operate at a better capacity to serve people better and do a better job. And again, think about a machine, right? The more friction that the machine has to encounter, well, the slower that machine is going to go, the less productive that machine gets. The more that we alleviate that friction, the better it's going to be. Now, we're dealing in relationships and information work, more so than this labor-intensive stuff, if you will, physical labor. But the same principles apply. There is intellectual friction. There is friction that goes about serving other human beings from a relationship perspective. So let's dive in to the client side first. Now, we touched on this concept last week with Andy Ambrose from Live Oak Technologies, right? You may remember that their live video chat and digital signature solution removes a ton of friction from the client onboarding process and the service delivery processes as well, right? So instead of needing to coordinate a meeting, to get in a room with a client, to make sure that they have the paperwork in front of them, and then hope that they sign and fill out everything correctly on the form, and then get the form back to you in time, and all the stuff that goes along with that, or making sure their estate attorney sees the right document and their heirs that might be beneficiaries of something get to see certain documents. You can get everybody on a screen. They can sign forms digitally. You can do the KYC. You can do identity verification, all designed to remove friction from the process. So really, really interesting episode. If you haven't listened to that yet, go to iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, wherever you like to get your podcast on, or head on over to blog.truelytics.com. You can catch that episode there. So really, really interesting process. And it got me thinking about, some other ways to remove friction, right? So first off, as I said, why is this concept important, right? Well, similar to the concept of doubt, right, that I talked about in episode 17, getting beyond a reasonable doubt with prospects and clients, particularly with prospects. Anytime there's something about doing business with your business that's a little bit more of a pain in the butt than it should be, the client in their mind opens up to the notion that maybe there's an alternative to this. And I was thinking about that actually this week as I was taking my son to a doctor's appointment, and it was a referral from his primary care physician. We get to the specialist and we get there and they hand me a ton of paperwork to fill out. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I've already basically filled out all this same paperwork with the primary care physician. All the same information is there. Okay, great. I'll start filling out this paperwork by hand, by the way. They didn't send me it digitally the day before where I could fill it out online. But then I'm sitting there and I'm like, wait a minute. A lot of this paperwork, they're asking me to fill out the same information on form after form after form. It's not like it's, different information. It's like the same stuff, name, birth date, and all that type of jazz. Like, why isn't this pre-populated across all the different forms? Why didn't the person who took my phone call when I was making the appointment fill out this information for me so that when I walked in, hand me a packet of forms that 90% of the information is filled out and I can just sign or check some check boxes that maybe weren't filled out ahead of time. So it was really kind of a point of friction and frustration on my behalf. And as a customer, client of the doctor, right? Sometimes doctors don't realize that I'm a customer, right? But some of the things that go through my mind are there's got to be a better way. And, hey, if there's some other doctor comes along and they offer the same service and it's less of a pain in the butt, I might consider that option, right? So, because anytime your client has to go through more work than is necessary, especially given the fact that they are getting very, very comfortable and used to friction-free or near friction-free processes in everything else they do, right? Think about every other part of your life, as we talked about before, Amazon and other online services where everything is typed in. Some of your information can be stored and pre-populated on forms and what have you. They're not asking you to do a whole bunch of the heavy lifting. And so anytime you can take a little bit of that friction away from the client, it's really a good idea. The same holds true for making the client go out of their way. It sounds sometimes a little ridiculous, actually, not interesting. It sounds a little ridiculous to think of the notion of going to your office as a pain in the butt for a client, as seen as a point of friction for them. But it is for many people. And it's increasingly getting that way because we're getting comfortable interacting with our services on our phones and on our computers at places and times when it's convenient for us. And that's, again, where Live Oak came in. But even beyond that, clients will prefer phone calls over visits sometimes. They will prefer text over phone calls, right? There was actually a study by Pew Research not too long ago where it said that many millennials view phone calls as rude, that it's an interruption thing, that you're keeping me on the phone and I have to interact with you now when you talk to me on the phone, versus if you could just send me a quick text and I can get back to you with some information, that's preferred. Well, if you're targeting millennials as your clients, you kind of have to know that, right? That they would prefer just to be able to interact with you on text. Like they've had their big meeting with you, they've onboarded as a client. Can we just do this digitally going forward? And in some ways, that's great for you, right? That you're not filling your day up with hour-long meetings with clients. If you can interact digitally, do so, especially if the client prefers it. Now, it's really interesting. I saw an SEI study that said 64% of high net worth individuals believe that collaborating with others online will be important to continuing to generate their wealth creation and maintain their wealth. So 64% of high net worth individuals are like, you know what? Online's where it's at for me interacting with people, not just their advisors, of course, they're interacting with others, but collaborating online with people. So we think about that in your business, forcing people to more of an analog interaction could be more friction than necessary. Now, does that mean you should not offer white glove in-person treatment? Of course not. Every client's going to be different. But one thing that we can look at and know for sure is the trend is clients are preferring minimal friction, easy to interact, digital flow whenever possible. And so the moral of the client side of this story is look at your processes and your interactions, routinely audit those client-facing activities, and ask yourself and ask the clients if there's any ways you can make the process easier for them. And take every piece of feedback you get there seriously. If people tell you they'd rather an email, go email as much as possible. If they tell you they'd rather have text, find a way to do text. The technology exists to make sure that all these things are compliant, make sure that they are supervisable, right? They make sure that they are modern, that they fit within your business and they reflect your brand appropriately. That technology exists. And with a little bit of effort, you can make it actually enjoyable for the client too, right? So that it's not just this bland piece of text that's coming through, that it's actually got a little bit of personality to it. And so that's the client side. Now, let's shift to the employee side, because again, as I said in previous episode about attracting millennials to your business, people have choices of where they work. They have a lot of choices of where they work. And increasingly, the modern workforce thinks nothing of getting up and moving if it gets to be too much friction at the workplace, right? Too much friction on their upward mobility, too much friction in their interaction with managers, too much friction in the interaction with their peers. If they're wanting to do more and embrace digital technologies and they're feeling like they've got management who's resistant to certain modernization of the business, they're not afraid to get up and move. And that could be a big challenge for your business. So you want to make sure that you are doing everything you can to make it easy on your employees. Now, I've worked in the wealth management business for, 25 years now. And I've worked with many, many firms as clients over the years. And there's a lot of opportunity to remove friction from the advisors' lives. Now, I assume the same is true for insurance agents. Minimal experience on the insurance side, but there's a lot of parallels there. But I know for sure that on the advisor side, there's a lot of opportunities to remove friction. So the evidence of too much friction is really easy to see with one particular statistic that blew me away when I first saw it. And it's that the washout rate for newly minted advisors is really, really high. That very, very few advisors make it to year 5 in the business. 80% of new financial advisors, newly licensed Series 7 advisors, never make it to year 5. Right? They quit by year 4. And that stunned me when I saw that. And what does that tell you? It really tells you that there's so much friction in that process to becoming a viable financial advisor, to having a career, to seeing that this is a career that's going to work for them, that they just quit, right? That they a client acquisition, client maintenance, getting a book of business that would pay them a living wage that they felt was worth their while, it was a really hard road to hoe, right? So what can we do to improve that process? What can we do to remove friction? Well, one of the things that I see is the structural setup of a lot of wealth management firms is not conducive to building a business that's going to outlast the founders, that's going to create an environment where advisors want to stay with the firm, that they feel an attachment to the firm and not just themselves, right? Because when you look at a very common structure for wealth management firms, it is, sure, the advisor works for XYZ Financial, and that's what they have on their business card. But the reality is, it kind of looks like the model that we see for hair salons. Yeah, the hairdresser works at this hair salon, but he or she is just really kind of renting a chair in that hair salon, and a little bit of their money, in a lot of cases, a lot of their money, goes to the salon owner who provides the overhead, and then they manage their client roster. And their client roster comes in and gets their hair cut and hair styled, what have you. And it works out fine until that hairdresser decides, I've had enough of this salon. I'm going to move to a different salon that's offering me a little bit of a higher payout, a little bit of a nicer environment, closer to my house, whatever that is. The hairdresser just leaves and takes their client roster, for them, a lot of it, with that person. Sound familiar? That happens in the wealth management industry too, right? Because in many cases, even though the sign on the door, it looks like it's one big cohesive thing, on the website, it looks like it's a big team environment, all the advisors are kind of on their own. They manage their individual book of business. The firm isn't promoting the advisors, isn't doing much of anything to drive business to the advisor through their digital channels, whether that be the website or social media or the newsletter. It's not promoting, bringing any business to the advisors, other than, I don't know, I guess somebody could just, willy-nilly on the XYZ Financial website go, I'll choose this person because they have a friendly face, right? The brand isn't doing much for the advisor in many cases. And that's problematic when we're thinking about building a valuable business over time, because the business isn't working as one. It's actually working as many individual businesses. Kind of like, again, to use another analogy, it's kind of like a baseball team, right? I mean, a baseball team has a goal, and the team wins, but at each interaction, it's one person versus another person. It's a pitcher versus a batter, right? And then once the batter hits the ball, it's whoever's catching the ball, right? It's a individual sport masquerading as a team sport. And I think at many wealth management firms, that's what's happening, right? It's individuals, a collection of individuals masquerading as a business. So what can we do? I think there's a couple of things. One is marketing really needs to start working for the advisors, right? Start promoting the advisors, whether that's driving traffic to webinars instead of just putting out some generic social media posts or newsletters about the latest economic reports and what do we think where the market is headed and what did we see where the market came from, what happened recently. It's like, no, why don't we actually do things like promote webinars, promote events where we can get prospects and clients in a room together to help grow the business. We can help advisors, if we're going to maintain the individual book of business approach, we can actively help promote them, right? Put some marketing effort behind the individual advisors, help coach them, grow them, put some money behind them, help them grow their business, especially those young guys, right? The new ones that you helped, brought them on, trained them, got them their license, and you're trying to help them grow their business. Don't just rely on them to do it on their own. Put some firepower behind them. So that's one thing you can do. The other thing may seem a little more complicated, but it over time makes a lot of sense. And that is shifting from the individual approach and moving more toward a team-based approach. Now, what do I mean by team-based approach? Instead of an individual advisor owning individual clients, why not have teams own clients, right? So not just one individual, like several advisors. So when a new prospect comes in, they don't just meet with one person. They meet with 2 or 3 people. And that does a few different things. Number one, it allows the advisors to have less pressure to be all knowing to the clients, to present themselves as this expert who knows every single thing there is to know, right? They can instead focus on their strengths and continue to grow while also leveraging other team members' strengths to, kind of fill in for where they're weak, right? So you have a team approach. It does little things too, like if advisor's sick and there was an appointment for a specific client, they don't have to cancel the client's appointment, right? They can just say, hey, listen, sorry, Joe was out today, but Ann and Steve are still here to meet with you, so let's do this meeting. Totally makes sense. It also allows junior advisors to grow at a little bit of a faster pace, right? Because they're working hand in hand with other senior advisors. It creates a continuity of service that way, right? So that as the senior advisors kind of age out of the business, right, they're not just, thinking about their own book of business. Instead, they're like, look, okay, great. I'm ready to ride off to retirement. I'm going to take my retirement package, whatever that package looks like. And other people just continue to serve the book of business, serve the clients. For you as a business, it reduces the risk of your clients walking out the door when, that senior advisor wants to leave to go to another firm. It also removes risk of transition at the end, right? That all along it was a team approach versus, that senior advisor was managing his or her clients right up until the end and decided, oh, by the way, I've got a year left. Now I need to find somebody to take over. No. There's been people working the whole time. Lastly, I think it creates a little more solidarity for the client and identifying with the brand versus an individual. And that's one of the things, historically in this business, clients see themselves as, oh yeah, well, my guy works at XYZ Financial, but really it's my guy, right? Mike Langford's my advisor versus XYZ Financial is my firm. And if you're growing a business that you want to be really valuable and sustainable, you want people to identify with the firm, right? And you want them to feel like there's always somebody there for them, that it's not just dependent upon this one person. And I know that can seem tricky to navigate, but it's definitely something worth exploring, because when you look at other businesses in the world, that's kind of the way we do, right? Like you like, as an example, you like Starbucks, you like Apple, you like whatever. You don't think of like, well, I got my guy at Apple, right? That sells me my iPhones and helps me with my computer and all this. And I was like, no. There's a variety of people working there. Now, it's not the same as a financial advisory firm. But, increasingly the medical industry, kind of bringing it full circle back to that, is starting to go to this team approach where you may go to a medical office, and that medical office has several people working there, and you're not always going to see the same doctor or physician's assistant. You're going to see a variety, or nurse practitioner or whatever. You're going to see a variety of people, whoever's kind of available there. And that works out fine over time. And so I think we need to move that way to, it does a lot of great for the business, but most importantly, it removes friction. Right? It makes it easier to work with than just relying on these one-on-one relationships. Okay, so to wrap things up, the notion of making it easier to work with you is intricately related to making it easy to work for you, right? We want to make it easy for clients to, first of all, become clients with you, to interact with you once they are clients. Then we want to also make sure it's easy for people who work for you to do business, for them to grow as employees, advisors, agents, whatever their role is. We want them to find it easy to attract and grow their client base, to serve that client base with ease. And if they're doing that, it's actually making it easier for clients to work with you as a firm, right? It's kind of full circle type of approach. So it boils down to looking across the entire business and removing friction along the way. What is hard about this process? And it's relatively easy to think about. Like, look at every little piece of your process for interacting with other humans and ask yourself, could this be easier? What is more friction than necessary in this process? How do I remove that friction? Ask yourself the age-old question that a lot of business owners should ask themselves is, we've always done it this way. Is this the best way to do it? If I was starting this business today, would I do it this way or would I do it a different way? It's not even about changing your whole business model. It's changing the approach of serving your business model. It's not about changing pricing. It's not about changing comp models or anything of that nature. It's looking at, is it easier to do business here? Because what we know is, like water will flow to the path of least resistance, clients and assets will also flow to the path of least resistance, and so will employees, right? They'll always look for an easier way to do business. And if your company, your wealth management firm, your insurance firm is the easiest place to do business, you're going to do just great. All right. Thank you very much for joining me again this week on the Valuations Podcast. It's always a pleasure to have you here. This show, as I say each time, is for you. And being that, make sure if you have questions or topics you'd like to see on the show or people you'd like to see on the show, feel free to reach out, mike@truelytics.com or valuations@truelytics.com. Both of those emails are monitored all the time. So your question or suggestion will get through. If you also want to have a talk with somebody at the team at Truelytics, make sure you go to truelytics.com and use the contact form there. It'll get to the right person depending on what your question or comment or suggestion is. We always love to hear from you. Also, look, if you want to hear more of these episodes, make sure you like and subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, TuneIn, whatever your preferred listening platform is. We're love to have you as a member of the audience, and make sure that these podcasts are landing in your inbox or on your podcast listening platform of choice regularly without you having to go find them. That would be great. And my one request that I have of you each week, of course, is make sure you tell a friend, tell a colleague, hey, listen to the show. I'm getting some value out of it. You should take a listen. You can do that a variety of ways. You can just reach out to them, via email or text or something and tell them about it. Or you can click the like and retweet or share on social media. Each one of these episodes is posted on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. Give us a retweet, give us a share, give us a like. Let your network know that you're enjoying the show, and they'll find out about it and probably going to like it because, look, I'm fairly likable and the topics are really awesome, I think. I know because I see all of you listening to it. So that's great. Well, anyway, until next time, I hope you have a wonderful week, and we will see you next week on the Valuations Podcast. Have a good one. See ya. Bye.